Hello, everyone. We are back. Sorry for the technical difficulties we encountered here. Irina, my dear friend, is here with us today to talk about cultural awareness and how to make sure it is embedded in your workplace, in your workflows. She has worked across many industries, well, mostly traditional industries such as oil and gas, but many countries and regions such as the Middle East, Europe, and Eastern Europe. Her experience in HR is vast, 20 years in HR, in recruitment, in operations, in vendor management, attracting talent, selecting talent, but mostly making sure that what happens at the matrix is also translated to the branch offices to create oneness and ultimately build longevity in corporations. So, a big challenge for um, one person, but it takes, I think, a few people to master this, um, yeah, this puzzle. And Irina, here, maybe you can introduce yourself to our followers so that they can understand your journey.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everybody. Yes, as Rebecca said, I'm an HR professional with nearly 20 years experience. And why I decided to present this subject is because I am myself Romanian, studied in Romania, finished my university, sorry, in Romania. Close to a year or so after my graduation, I left my country, and I started a new adventure in the Middle East, and spent a few years there. From there, I moved to Paris, so back to Europe. Worked there. All these experiences are mainly HR, and in companies, in multinational companies, working on projects in different countries. So Paris, then a few years later, I missed being an expatriate, so I went to Qatar, went back to Middle East, and finally I've settled in France for now. We'll see where life takes me.
um, so when we talk about cultural awareness, I think there are a few elements that you had mentioned. I think in four different layers, and I have here. It was cultural awareness, cross-cultural context,
Yes.
intercultural relations, diversity and inclusion, which are not the same and are not to be confused. And maybe if you can give us perhaps the definition or the frame for each of these topics.
Yes.
I am uploading your presentation in a second.
Yes. So these are all terms you may have heard, either on a personal level or in the workplace. These are all different definitions, but they are somehow related to the culture and the differences we have between the cultures. And this is how we try to tackle each subject. So the cultural awareness is simply acknowledging their cultures different than yours, and keep that in mind in your interactions with people from different countries, different cultures, different regions, different ethnicities. We
Yes.
have the cross-cultural context, which in the business world, it translates to the company's efforts of ensuring an effective communication and interactions between the offices, between different branches, so between professionals of different cultures. Why is it important is because we need to acknowledge these differences that makes us better in the workplace and improves our efficiency. We'll speak about that as well in a different on a different slide.
Yes.
We have the very hot topic, the diversity and inclusion. Oh, sorry, I missed the intercultural relations.
Yes. The
That is,
intercultural relations. Yes. Go ahead.
yeah, the intercultural relations. I believe it speaks for itself. It's the way we interact with people that are in front of us, people that are maybe different, even different education. Yeah, because we have the cultures and we can have the subcultures, and that goes down all the way to the individual, from the education he received within the family, the education received within the community. So these are the relations, and this is how we manage the relations with people from different backgrounds. And diversity and inclusion, it as I said, it's a hot topic, and especially these days is the gender diversity, but I think it should apply also to the cultural diversity.
Yes.
So when if we look deeper into this um, into what the cultural awareness means, we can differentiate these levels. I mean, first one, awareness and of visible cultural traits. You can, for example, if you walk into your kitchen for a cup of coffee in the office, I mean, you go for a cup of coffee and you see different colleagues. You look at them and you could possibly say, well, this person is from this culture. This person maybe speaks this language. So these are traits that it's an example. I'm not going to very
Yes.
specific in this, but it's just to understand that this is the first level. This is where you may have the awareness of a different culture than yours in the people in front of you. Then we can take notice of different nonverbal gestures, maybe,
Yes.
or just by discussing you realize, oh, okay, so he says this, he makes this gesture. We say, for example, we say no, no, no. An Indian with that may mean yes.
Yes.
Right, so
Exactly.
we acknowledge, we go a little deeper and we say, okay, this is different from mine, this means he's from a different culture.
Mhm.
Once we've reached there, we can start maybe to become more and more curious about it and start looking into it deeper. We maybe
Yes.
research, we maybe speak to the person, we may ask feedback from other persons that have been in this situation. And
Yes.
I think the highest level is once you immerse yourself in a culture. For example, as an expatriate, you go and you live there. You live in a country that has different um, visions, different education, different everything from yours. And once you live with it every day, it becomes like it's like a second nature, sort of, where you can say, okay, that's, I know this culture, I know these people are like that. So you can't tell me different because I've seen it, I know it.
Yeah.
So that's why I presented this for people who maybe have not been exposed to a
To
training.
moving around this much, or just being mobility, relocation, expat
Yes,
assignment,
exactly.
all of
Yes,
these different
yes. So
challenges.
this is my trajectory, because I started from that
Yeah.
and ended up to knowing especially the Middle East, because yeah, I've
Yeah.
spent 7-8 years over there. So I know it a
Mastered.
little better than before. Yeah. So why is this important to know, except for on a personal level? If this is something that is of interest to you, you can go and dig deeper. But on a professional level, I think it's a critical subject for companies these days, with the globalization, with with people, companies just outsourcing part of their business, outsourcing payroll, outsourcing IT, outsourcing a
Yes.
lot of other options they
Recruitment.
have.
Yeah.
And the reasons, I'm not going to get into it, but there are obviously many reasons to outsource certain functions, and we usually outsource them in countries that will cost effective. It will be a cost
Yes.
effective outsourcing. Yes.
Yes.
So it's not going to be Europe, or maybe it will be Eastern Europe, because it's cheaper
Yes.
over there to have that function over there than in Switzerland or in France or in the UK.
Yes.
So we'll be interacting with that company a lot, right? Recruitment, especially recruitment, if we outsource recruitment, that is a very important part of the business, right? When you want to focus on your talent. So we need we need to be aware of it. We need to know how to communicate easily with colleagues, with
Yes.
people. So when it is effectively incorporated into a company's business model, it has a significant impact on the performance of the company.
Yes. So I think this takes us to the next slide. Let me
Takes
just
us
go
to the
with you.
next
Yes.
slide, exactly. And statistically, it has been shown that a cultural diverse team is 35% more effective than a regular team.
Wow.
Which
35. That's It's a
That's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, that's a
That's a
lot.
lot. It can be a lot because it's something that we can easily work through. I mean, imagine 35%. All of a sudden, you're more effective 35%.
Yeah.
No. So
And how
it's
about cost effective as well, or how do you measure also process? Yeah, I guess everything comes into play at this point. You get cheaper, faster, more
exactly
done with
it's
less
on all
resources.
levels. It's on all levels. Financial results. Yeah.
Yeah, time
People.
wise.
Yeah. How people feel in that team. So it all plays a role in these 35%. So,
Yeah.
but it's just to say that culture, cross-cultural context is something we should seriously look at.
Yes.
And how we can maintain, how we can have a diversity in our workplace, a cultural diversity, what it means to the company, to the activities of the company. It's the increased performance, as I said, is 35% for just one team. It's the innovation and the creativity that is brought in by different cultures, because there are different education systems. So it's you can have a country that has its education system that is based on facts, and another one that is based more on how you think of things, how you know, it's more imaginatory. So these things, these different, um, I already said different, but these differences brought in together and managed correctly, you can have something beautiful and
Like a high
successful.
performing culture. Yeah.
Exactly, because this is the word of the year: high performance
Yeah.
cultures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a problem solving capabilities, because some
Yes.
people are more um, strategic. Some people are more uh, focused, result oriented. Some are focused on how we get there. So mixing the two, we can get a good result. We can get a problem solving a team.
Yeah.
We can attract the best international talents because we know how to communicate with them, we know what their needs are, and we know how to retain them.
Yes.
There you go. So if we want to create a friendly environment of of our place, of our workplace, we need a
Yes.
set of rules and regulations. We need an open mind, willingness to get to know the people from different culture and to understand how they work, how they function.
Yes.
This is called a cross-cultural intelligence mindset. We can,
So
I think,
let me go to
we
the next.
can
Yes,
move
that's
to the
the next
next
one. That's
slide.
perfect.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And how we get this mindset? It's four steps. It's first of all is asking the right questions. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean having all the right answers at all time. No, it's just being able and asking the right questions. And we go through these continuous four steps, because you can't know everything about every culture. Yeah, you will have to do these four steps every time you meet somebody from another culture. It's to assess the situation, to have a look around and see, okay, as I said, we go and have a coffee. Okay, I know he's I don't know, Indian, because I can see from his appearance. I know he's somewhere Scandinavian country. These are the things you can ask yourself in the beginning. This is assessing the situation. Then you need, if you prepare, for example, for a meeting, right? You need to assess the situation first and then make a strategy. Okay, so what do I do? I'm going to go, I'm going to ask, I know this and this. I'm going to have a look and see what information I can get on my own, or maybe the HR.
Yeah.
And then you go into taking action. That means going and interacting with that person, asking the questions to that person, and see how you can improve yourself and get to know that person. Yes,
Yes.
just asking, okay, where are you from? Or so how did you grow up? Or what was your strategy in resolving this and that, and going maybe a little bit more than personal, going also into details of work related details.
Yes.
And at the end of this conversation or maybe meeting, you can evaluate the outcome. You can see, you can ask yourself questions like, how did it go? How do I think it went? What could I have done differently? What
Yeah.
was wrong about it? What was right about it? And you can answer yourself these questions. And if maybe someone else was in the meeting, you can get their feedback. So these are the ways that we can become more aware. And these are the steps that I think that can get you this mindset, and that will help you in the long run in your workplace.
Super. These are really
Yeah,
valuable tips, very applicable. But this is really fun, the cultural dimensions. I'm excited about this. So we're
yeah,
comparing. Yeah.
yeah. It's the cultural dimensions, but maybe I could give a couple of examples,
Yeah.
right, for interaction. I remember when I moved to Dubai, it was the year after the 9/11 attacks.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was
Okay.
a bit stressful for me moving all the way into that new culture. But I got to speak with people, and I touched on a very delicate subject, which is religion. I remember I
Okay.
was uh, driving with colleagues to work, and one of them was Egyptian. It was a man. It was Egyptian. You can get the stereotype quickly there. And I asked his views from his culture point of view, from his religion point of view, his views on the Bible, and we had a discussion about this. And all I can say is that the subject, we went together up to one point, so we're not going to get into that, but it created a connection between me and my colleagues. that
Wow.
was that was it created, I mean, the environment I went to afterwards, it felt more comfortable, it felt more welcoming, I felt more relaxed, more at ease. And I well, when you're relaxed and at ease, you do things
You can
better, right?
perform. Yeah.
Easier and quicker and without stress, and everybody's happy. So that would be an example of
Yes.
what could be good when you open a conversation.
Because you're establishing yourself, maybe just as, okay, I'm coming in here as a woman from Eastern Europe, and I have
Exactly.
my belief system, and by the way, this is how I grew up or how I was raised, and you have your beliefs, and you're in a completely different context. Maybe just identifying, this is who you are, this is who I am,
Exactly.
and this
And
does that.
it also creates boundaries, because even if we were interested in the other person's culture and points of views, there are boundaries that need to be respected, right?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
once you get, usually it takes a little conflict to understand that. So it's okay, it's fine, as long as you know that these little conflicts are to get to know the other person better and to understand the limit you can
Yes,
reach.
that you cannot
And
cross. Yes.
that there you cannot go across. But
Yes.
this is a this is on a personal and on a professional level. I mean, it
Yes.
applies, right? It applies to both of them. But we're talking more the workplace
Yes.
environment.
So collective versus
Yes,
individualistic cultures.
exactly. This is a dimension, one of the dimensions, collective versus individualistic cultures.
Yes.
I should probably start by saying that this dimension was highlighted by the Dutch psychologist Gert Hofstede,
Hmm.
who took us an IBM study, and from that he brought four at the beginning. Sorry, there were four dimensions in the beginning. Now he reached six. They've reached
Yes.
six in the study. Um, Maybe I can quickly present them. It's the power distance, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity versus femininity in terms of how we look at problem solving.
Okay.
We have the long-term orientation, indulgence, and the one I've chose to present here,
Yes.
the collective versus individualistic cultures. So in the
Hmm.
collective cultures, they're more collaborative. Uh, the collective cultures are especially countries like India, Indonesia, China. So cultures that have a look over um, they're family oriented. It's the second one. So they like to see themselves as part of something bigger. It's not
Yes.
just them. It's being part of a family, being part of of a region,
Unity. Yeah.
and the way they think, everything they do, it involves everybody else around them, their
Yes.
group, and of
Yes.
course, we share common values. On the other side, we have the individualistic culture, and they
Yes.
encourage personal accomplishments. They recognize the individual accomplishments. It's like,
Yes.
for example, I was going through documents and I came across something written about the US and all these prizes they give, the best sports person
Yeah.
of the year, or the
Words
best
and yeah.
valedictorian, and that and this and that, and they're all about one person. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this creates, I'm not saying it's bad or good, it's just the way they are, it's just the culture. So
Yes.
this makes them a very individualistic culture. And in a if we have the independent decisions, okay, so even if it's a teamwork, they tend to highlight their personal accomplishments in that work.
Yeah.
And of course that makes them very competitive, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is this we have to keep in mind this when, for example, if it's an international employee, yeah, or student, or traveling from one country to another, from one culture to another, especially coming from a collective culture, he will
Yes.
have really difficult time in balancing his modesty, because he's always referring to himself as a team. He never uses the I word. He always uses the we, and
Yes.
so it will be difficult to find the balance between modesty, as I said, and the self promotion. When do I
Yes.
stop being modest, and when do I say this is my accomplishments? So this is where we have to look at the different colleagues of ours and keep that in mind. Just if he does things differently, just keep that in mind. He comes in from another culture.
Yes.
That happened to me. That
Yeah.
happened
This
to
is
me.
really interesting.
In job interviews, it happened to me, and I got the feedback because I was always saying we, and I referred we was my team I worked in,
Yes.
and
But
I
should you
got
say like me and my team?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, I
yeah.
could have, but I said we did this and we accomplished that, and I got feedback and saying, "But where's you in that?" I said, yeah, but I was part of that team. We did that together. I was not the only person working on that project, so we
Yeah.
had different views. So I was considered lacking confidence, but it was not that. It was because I was acknowledging the teamwork. Anyway,
Yes.
so these are little things that
Yeah.
that come up in different situations.
Yeah, no, but just to add to that, I had a client who was having a hard time finding her comfort in a very competitive company in the US, highly competitive. And she's from South America. And she was telling me, they said I always do what they tell me to do. What else, right? Like duh. And so they wanted me to be more like, why do you want me to do this, or where does it fall in the larger context, in the larger picture? And what would you in the long term want to accomplish with this? So to ask questions and not simply take what your manager is telling you to do and run, because that's probably how we, in South America, perhaps would
Yes.
be usually working. So for her, it was just like, what else am I supposed to do if my manager tells me to do something? So this was really an interesting topic for debate. Yeah.
It is, and it's very interesting again, and we need to make this easier. We need, like we do now, exchange experiences, exchange stories. It
Yeah.
is so much easier when you're in a relaxed mood to discuss these things, and then take whatever is to take and put it into action later.
Yes.
But one thing we have to understand, because we have this culture by region, by country, by continent, whatever. But it's important to know that personality overrides cultural stereotypes.
Okay.
Because okay, I'll take what an example. Let's say French, they're very fashionable. They like to take care of themselves. They like to have a certain image of themselves. Or we consider them a bit uh, complaining all the time and things like that. Yeah, so we have this image. But when
Yeah.
you go and live in France or spend some time there, and you start interacting with French people, and you come across a guy that has nothing to do with that stereotype, that's
Hmm.
when you realize that yes, we have original stereotypes, so to say. But
Yes.
then what's important is the person in front of you. You cannot
Yes.
assume
Yes.
things. You cannot
Generalize.
just assume things because
Yes.
he's French. Oh, he's like that. No, we
Yeah.
have to go a little bit deeper into that.
That's why you have the countries. I love this
Yeah,
frame. I
I
mean, it's
know
a
it's
little bit
difficult to read.
small.
Yeah, I know it's difficult to
Maybe
read, but
some of them. For
yeah,
example,
yeah,
communication, right? I think this one is
yeah.
really fun.
It's based on the Hofstede model.
Yeah.
His on the Hofstede website, you find this beautiful by country, and
Yeah.
you get under the dimensions I mentioned earlier, you get a score, a sort of a score that each country has on a different dimension. But this is something I used also for a training for younger salespersons, because
Yes.
they were becoming a salesperson and they were working in a multinational company. And I said, just be aware whenever you are negotiating either with your client or your consultant or whatever, you're buying stuff from them or you're trying to sell them something, be aware that when you call the US or you call Finland or you call Mexico or Turkey, you have to prepare a speech that is adapted to their mindset, to their
Yes.
culture, to their way of working. So I've presented that, for example, in Finland, when you have a communication with somebody, it will be direct. It will
Yes.
tell you, your whatever you're selling is no good for me, because, and they will say it like that. They will not embellish it in any way. But when you
Yes.
go and try to sell something like that in India,
Yes.
it's not their culture. They will not say no to you. They will not say it's not good. They will be very diplomatic about it. They will be very polite about it.
Yes.
But it's a no.
Yes.
No. It sounds wonderful, but we don't need it at the moment. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it will be like that. It's not because it's because of how they react to these things, how
They
they accept.
avoid it. The no is conflict. Yeah. So maybe that's
They don't like conflict, and they will
yes.
tell you. And I had problems like that in when I first went to the Middle East, and I was asking. I had to work with another team, and they were mostly Indians, and I told them we need to do this and that, and I had my instructions from my boss as well, so I had to make sure they were doing that, and they said yes, 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 we'll do it like this, and we'll do that, and the next week there was nothing done. It was done, but something completely different. And I went and discussed with them. I said, "What?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is better. We thought this is better. Yeah, but you had to do it as I said because that's what my boss told me." And and again, whatever the boss says, it's the law, right? And they couldn't say no to me. They knew it was not good, but they couldn't say it to me like that.
Yeah.
Straight. No, so it was as I said, it took a little bit of frictions, and then we understood each other and we could talk differently. So this is very interesting to look into details. I mean, if you want, we can take another one.
Like
uh
when you start business meetings, sometimes you'll have people who start talking about the meeting or everything else but the meeting.
yeah, or for some people, meeting starts the day before when you go, and because you have people traveling from other countries, so you have to receive them well. You take them out for dinner, and
Yeah.
for example, Mexico, that's when the business is done. For them, that's when it starts, because you
Yes.
have to discuss and how are you, how's your family, where did you grow up, or how many
Yeah.
kids you have, really personal
Yeah.
matters that they like to discuss, and they don't like discussing business at that table, right?
No,
On
it's almost
sorry,
like they avoid it because they just want to assess, are you a good person? And based on that, we
to create
can do business. Yes,
they need to
yes,
create a relationship before discussing something serious.
yes,
So, but that would be very interesting to see a Scandinavian
yeah.
businessman dealing with a Mexican or Indian. That would be, without him being aware of these differences.
These-
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This can be quite challenging if
Yes.
not assessed properly. Definitely.
Yeah. Because this takes us to the next slide. That is the
Yes.
localization. Yes, you
Yes.
mentioned that. Yes. Um, what is it? It's a term that's been used since the 80s. Yeah. It's not as new as you would think, but it's not, we don't hear it very often, maybe. But it's a mixture between globalization and localization. Globalization is the process where you extend your business everywhere, and localization is when you try to sell your product on a typical market, on a specific market, and you try to adapt your product or service or whatever you're selling to that market. And the example would be, for example, now McDonald's,
Yes.
they have business everywhere in the world. But when you go to Japan, for example, you want to have a burger, you will not have the same burger as in the US, right? You will have a shrimp burger, or you'll have a teriyaki chicken burger, or things that are very adapted to the local market, the demands of the local market. So this is this is, I think, an important term to keep in mind, because
But you maintain the same standards, I suppose. I mean,
yeah,
the look, feel, the
you
branding. Yeah.
but you adapt because you understand the culture of the people. You understand that they don't have the same, the taste buds
Yeah.
uh, are different, they're trained differently to different
Yeah.
tastes. And you can't sell thing. And they had, apparently McDonald's had big problems in the beginning in China because they wouldn't change their products,
Mm.
and they didn't have a big success as everywhere else. So
Yes.
their big competitor KFC apparently took the market in the beginning. So anyway, it's an example, and these
Yeah.
examples actually make the subject very interesting, right?
Yeah. Oh, it can have a huge impact in your bottom line, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is just to understand the term, and then this, based on on the knowledge that companies like to open offices and have outsourced functions across the globe, it's important to know how to manage the cross-cultural environment. And the cross-cultural management, it's something could be tricky, but it's also very, very important, because um, you get to learn as a manager, as a leader. You get to know how to get your people invested in whatever project you have. And this is one of one of the ways to do the cross-cultural management is by understanding your team, right? So when you want to set a culture, you have to understand, first of all, to change the culture, sorry, rather change than set it, you have to understand where you start from. Yeah, you have to understand where you are right now, and you understand what you need to change, to adjust, so that the team works effectively. But also, what other solutions would be in having a successful, highly performance company when you're across the globe, is maybe, for example, nationalizing certain positions. And you see that with big companies. I remember I was working on a project, and we had teams working in South Korea. We had teams working in Nigeria, in the US, in Italy, and we were forced as a company, in certain countries, especially in Nigeria, we were forced to hire local employees. We started at 5% of the team, and they've reached, I think, 70% by the end of the project. So we have to think of that, because it's important for the country you're operating in, because you develop their workforce. But it's
Yeah.
also important for you, because you're over there operating locally, you don't know the country even if you research it as well as the locals, right? So they know better. They know how to do things so that it doesn't create much of a disturbance.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, yeah. Sorry, go
tell
ahead.
me, you had something
I'm
in
just
mind.
thinking about decentralization and centralization. Like, is there a model or a hierarchy, flat or hierarchical? Is there a secret to being, more considerate, to being more you know, cross cultural, or more aware, more diverse in your viewpoint?
If it's more, sorry,
In
I'm
terms
not
of
sure.
the structure of the company, decentralized or more centralized, or flat hierarchies, or does it help, or you don't necessarily
Mm. I think
balance this in
I
the
think it
equation?
depends. It depends on the values and on the goals of the company,
Uh-huh.
because that's where it all starts, right? You have to set your goals, you have to set your targets and whatever you want to achieve, and then you see which are the steps you need to take to achieve that. And culture is part of this, of course. And decentralizing could sometimes be it could be good because especially if you have a local manager that
Okay,
understands
like,
the
okay,
words.
hired locally. Okay, understood.
Hired
Yeah.
locally, that can be successful. I'll give you an example, especially with the cultures, because we were talking about family orientated, and I took the examples of the Indians. I mean, in these kind of countries, collective countries, they will hire the family, they will hire the neighbors, they will hire
Yeah.
anybody in their group, anybody in their environment, right?
Community.
That's
Yeah.
normal. It's normal. You take this to a Western country, it's a policy against it. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
totally forbidden. So
Yeah.
I had this situation in Dubai. There was a team, and it was workers with painters and welders and things like that, and they were all we call them
Cousins.
the Indian village because they were all family and friends, and they knew each other, right? And they had an American manager.
Yeah.
It didn't went that
That
well.
that didn't work.
The manager quit. He left.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was too much. It was too different. It was too complicated. He was not prepared. He was, and okay. So their operations, they don't have these things in mind all the time. Yeah, they think about is
Just cost
result,
effectiveness.
result, performance, and how we
Yeah.
do it best in this in these conditions. So it was difficult. So he decided to leave.
Yes.
So this is an example. So it really depends. It really depends on the company's mentality and goals, and maybe even I could say even their line of work.
Yes. More traditional industries, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
As
yeah,
opposed to more innovative ones.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a company that sells products, they need to decentralize because
Yeah.
it's in their interests,
Yeah.
I think.
You have some case studies. You mentioned now a good story, so I'm
Yeah,
really excited about your
it's and I was
learning.
thinking because I worked in the Middle East, right? And I've seen a few things there, and it's because we have this image of the Middle East and the Arab world where men are very strict and they don't interact with women, and women they have a not a very good image. So what if you're a female representative of a country traveling to the Middle East? What are the
Mhm.
things you need to know? What are the things you need to do? What are the things you should not do? Right? So what it would be something that you should not do, right? Go with a big cleavage, or
Oh
I
yeah,
mean
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not appropriate. Even in Europe, I think that would not be appropriate. But it could be appropriate maybe if you have a skirt that goes a little bit higher than your knees. It's fine in Europe, right?
yeah,
There, no,
yeah,
it
yeah.
would not
The
look
knee
good.
is the limit.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it would not be look. It would not look good. Yeah. So when you cross your legs, you have to be sure that you do not show the back of your foot, the sole of your
Ah,
shoe, because
yes,
that is
yes.
very disrespectful. So there are things like that. But also, On the other hand, as I said, I went to Dubai just after the attacks. So I had in mind all those things they were saying on TV, whatever the media said. Oh, the Arabs, they're terrorists, they're terrible, they're terrible, they're terrible.
Hmm.
And I went there by myself. And
Wow.
it was stressful. It was very interesting to see them dressed, as with a
Yes.
traditional clothes. And it was I discovered that they're nothing like that.
Yes.
I mean, I was very spoiled there as a woman. And not because maybe they would say, "Oh, but you're European," so it's and no, they didn't take me for an European there. They thought I was either Lebanese or Iranian or from the region, yeah, because of my dark hair, probably. I don't know. But just to say that women are not that disrespectful like over there, but we need to keep in mind that we need to respect their traditions and their views when we travel to their country, especially, right?
Yes.
So when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just maybe these are case studies. These are for people who are watching and who are interested, just to see if they come, for example, in an interaction with a Dutch person, yeah, and he comes and he says, "Well, your product is no good. I don't care." What would be your
Yeah.
reaction? How would you feel? So it's more. This is more for people to think about, to put themselves in that situation and think, what would they do without knowing anything, and then maybe if they want to, they can maybe research a little bit and see how would they do it now that they know these things. How would the conversation go? How would they be around the table? What would that be?
Yeah.
This is the point of these case studies, mainly. Yeah.
Or like the
Mm.
South Korean with the holding the business card with the two hands.
Oh.
I've seen
Yeah, but
that.
yeah, that's, well, you insult them, right? If you don't do that,
Yes.
because it's how they are. And I was thinking, I told you, with this presentation, I went and found lost memories. And I
Yes.
remember traveling to Norway one time, and I was in Oslo, and I went in a coffee shop, and I was on the terrace, and we were having a coffee, relaxed with my friend, and just a couple of tables away was somebody from the royal family,
Oh
and
wow.
it was all normal. People didn't care. It was like anybody, any other stranger at the table. But because they are like that, the hierarchy is not it's not like God. I mean, he's not God. He's there. He has a job. He does his job. I'm here. I do my job, and then that's it. I mean, it's easier to interact with the king in Norway, yeah, than with a CEO in other country. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll just take. Let's just take France. If you want to go and speak to the CEO of Total, do you think it's easy?
No,
No,
it's not.
no, it's not. So this is, again, it's it's how people are. This is how cultures are, and we need to acknowledge it and respect it and learn to respect it and learn to live with it and understand them, because it's like with everything. The more informed you are, the better you perform, right? Whatever the
Yes.
domain you're working in. So
It has an impact on the bottom line, and we're opening for questions if anyone would like to add or comment on what was said. You're welcome to ask away or share some of your experience from working abroad, living abroad, um, as an expat, as an immigrant. A lot of us have started careers abroad and have still are succeeding abroad, maybe because of those awareness. Definitely not despite them. I think this will only support your career, if anything.
definitely, definitely. And
Yeah.
it's very, very, very important these days, because people not only work in other places, but they started moving around a lot. So we need to understand what the other culture we're joining is about.
Yes. If we don't have any questions, then I will conclude this meeting. And thank you again, Irina, for putting this together. It was very informative. I loved the examples, the stories. It was very lively and yeah, educational and inspiring. I almost want to go and live in the Middle East and be spoiled
Um,
myself. Um, so
so
thank
yeah,
you again. This was a great presentation. And we'll be sharing this on LinkedIn. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube. If you have not been able to watch, you can still watch it afterwards. We have our next live in 2 weeks, which will be about sustainability. That conversation around sustainability being the new digital. And that will be with Bruno Pirotta from EY. And I'm excited to also welcome him. Thank you again, Irina. I'm so happy that we had you today on board, and we will speak to you soon. And please reach out to Irina. I think you'll be open to questions afterwards if they
Definitely. Definitely.
arise. Just add
Mhm.
her up. Her LinkedIn profile is available to you, and ask away.
Thank you,
So
Rebecca. Thank you for inviting me.
thank you, and I wish you all a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.